This podcast is not affiliated with any Grand Lodge, and the particulars, antics, and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and should be dismissed immediately.
Bling. All right. Welcome to another episode of Studio 357 Masonic Podcast. This is episode 51. That's pretty cool.
I've missed a few.
You've missed a few. Well, you have a job. That's the rest of us don't, but you work evenings now. So today is the day after Thanksgiving. And we have with us, do you want a title?
If you want to give me one, sure. Otherwise,
We'll go, not sir. We'll just go with Chad Kopenski.
Okay.
From Ohio.
Senior works.
We can do that.
A few years ago, I got ordained online, and I got the title of father and spiritual warrior just because I thought it was funny.
I like that.
So if you, either one, I will respond to. So, hi guys.
Hi.
I will say it. I'm a fan of the podcast, and you've had a number of my friends on, so I'm grateful that you guys are having me on. You had Hrinko and Hall. You had Matt Parker on, and you had the guys from Time for Fellowship. So,
yep,
all great
and
guys.
We also had the guys from the Third Degree on as well.
Those guys did crack me up. So,
yeah,
they're. I love those guys. They were just at our Grand Lodge, and they were recording just outside the session, and they were having a grand old time. Have you guys recorded it at your session yet, or done a mobile recording thing?
Yep.
How'd that go for you?
Pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty well. I mean, it's, the first time out, you don't really know what to expect, but we're prepared for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, it can get interesting pretty quickly. So when you do mobile, so but
all right. So as usual, we'll shout out to our show sponsors real quick. We have Homeward Handyman Services, the Insurance Center, the Corporal Dagan Page Foundation, of course, our Patreon supporters, and Mason Gear Shop, where you can find our shirts, hoodies, and hats with our show's logo on it. There's two options and several color options. We'll go around robin. What have we been up to? Heath, you haven't been on the show in a couple of months, so what have you been up to?
Lots of working. Got a new car. I think that's pretty much it. Just been working a lot.
Okay. I've been contemplating for a long time, and now I'm finally a week from today. I will be getting LASIK surgery at 48 years old, which is some say it's not the greatest idea, but I will deal with readers for the rest of my life. It's better than having to depend on glasses.
Yep, that's definitely fair. I've been working a lot, but I just paid off my car today, and I'm really happy about that. Yes, sir. I just got back from Indian Cave State Park. Don't go camping in the winter. That was a mistake. You can hike. Don't camp. That's all I got to say. Work.
Do you guys allow profanity on this podcast or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are listed under adult content.
Well, you never know. So, Gabe, my dad used to wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go duck hunting or go do work. And I always say, come on, Chad, anybody can do this shit in nice weather. So I'm telling you, anybody can camp in nice weather. It's the brave, hale, hardy, and stupid who go out, when it's 18 degrees outside. So God bless you.
Amen.
So Heath and I have actually camped with our Boy Scout troop at 0 degrees. And it was a blast. It really was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
So what about you, Eric? Eric's joining us remotely. I should mention that if you're listening, if you're watching, you don't see him. And if you're listening, you don't hear Jim. It is the day after Thanksgiving, and Jim has a house full of guests. So we decided that was a better place for him to be.
Yeah.
Yes, I am doing well. School teaching energy classes is pretty wild. I have 13 classes next week. I will have had over 4,000 kids by the end of the year. So it's a lot busy with that stuff. But I'm happy to say that Beehive did a phenomenal job with their open close proficiency. Just took care of that for them last week. Aside from that, boy, band camp planning, it's going fantastic. We just actually had we were at the NMEA event in Lincoln, Nebraska, to kind of just talk to a bunch of people that were out there, have our own little booth, and just kind of promote the Masonic band. And things are going really well. We're actually, hopefully, the first week of December is when we're going to open up applications, which is probably a month earlier than we would ever be able to do it. So things are going really well on that front. So,
yeah. All right, Chad, what's been going on in your
life? Hold on, sorry.
What's that?
What do you do in your real life?
I work for the local utility company, OPPD, power company, basically, and I am an energy consultant, but I create products and services for residential energy efficiency, energy education, all that sort of stuff. But I also am the education. I am the thing. So I teach energy classes for kids 3rd grade through senior year in high school.
Okay.
That's the big part of my job. And then when I'm not teaching, I'm helping with energy efficiency videos, energy efficiency information, education. I go on the news stuff, all sorts of things. Basically, if it has to do with talking and educating, it's me.
Been there. And talk to me about this Masonic band thing.
Yeah, so Nebraska has a Masonic All-Star Marching Band that is made up of kids throughout the entire state of Nebraska. And the Masonic lodges throughout the state of Nebraska also participate in various ways. They either donate a scholarship for a student to go, because it's entirely free for the students, for them to go. And they basically learn a halftime show. They learn marching fundamentals, parade fundamentals, and whatnot. But they play the halftime show for the Shrine Bowl game here in Nebraska, which is always the first Saturday in June. So I'm part of the planning committee, and we basically put that thing on. It's a pretty sizable budget, about $60,000 of what it costs to run that program. So we do that. And then we have a lot of the Masonic family help chaperone, and various staff members and whatnot.
I bet that is absolutely just, I'm sure it's a headache, but I'm sure it's an absolute blast to do.
It's a lot of work, but it is rewarding work when you get to the end there, for sure.
I marched in high school, and I mean, it was a tough summer and an enjoyable summer. But you're right. Like, the friends you make, the experiences you have, those memories, you're doing phenomenal work doing that. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Was I supposed to wait to talk until you actually said, "Hi, Chad, talk"? You were doomed as soon as So.
Oh no, we don't like to stay on the rails on our show, anyways.
Right. I say, is everybody I've been doing a lot of work. We've had sort of the beginning of our Masonic year. We had our annual communications in October, and so this is the time when there's before you can be installed as master, you have to go to what's called a past master's convocation. They give you the virtual past master's degree, and they get all the people together who are going in as masters for the year to kind of review the goals, the initiatives, the plans. We have a yearly inspection in Ohio where you rotate through your degrees, that you actually present full form, either with an actual or a virtual candidate, or like a pro tem candidate. And it's a social event. So every lodge gets inspected in 1 degree every year. And it rotates. And our inspection season starts in about a month. And so some districts it goes January to March, some it goes January to June, but for most masters in Ohio, you get installed in November, December, and then you're starting to work right away towards getting the lodge ready for inspection. And Masonically, I am a has-been, and I have actually only one job this year. But part of that job is being a resource for our district education officers and the lodges in the district on things like ritual and education and that sort of thing. So it's kind of nice when masonry goes from being have to want to. And at this point, masonry is kind of a want to, which is nice.
Perfect. So give us some of your background, Chad. I know you haven't lived in Ohio your whole life. Yeah.
Well, I was born a dark Saturday in 1972. No,
not that far.
Me and my 17 minutes after my twin sister. My My name's Chad. Let's see. Yeah, I grew up in just south of Madison, Wisconsin. Lived there for a very long time, and then went to school there. Lived there in grew up in Madison. Moved to Milwaukee. Lived and taught there for many years. I taught high school English and theater at a school called Rufus King. And then I moved down here to Ohio, to Appalachian, Ohio. It was not the best of transitions, but the upside of that transition is that it helped me find Masonry. And I've been a Mason for 15 years. And I joke that I'm a Masonic has-been because I have a lot of pasts, past district deputy, past district education officer, past member of the membership committee for Ohio, past chairman of the Graduate Education Committee, past president of the Midwest Conference on Masonic Education, past master of the High Lodge of Research. I got a lot of pasts. So now what I tend to do is I tend to do a lot of speaking or a lot of just sort of working with different lodges around the country or around Ohio about some of the things that are really of interest to me. And I'm really interested in the life and work of a guy named John Shearer, who was a Masonic lithographer and publisher. I'm also really big on what I like to call intentional Masonry, basically getting a lodge to identify what their values are, and creating a lodge experience that reflects their values. And so those are some, and that, and yeah, I guess sort of helping people understand Masonry through some different lenses. So, but I live in Ohio now with, I work in operations for a school of nursing. I'm not a nurse, but I with my wife and my daughter, who is on the autism spectrum, and we have a ridiculous number of cats and dogs and critters, and yeah, so I like my life. Can't complain.
Good deal. Good deal. Eric, I'm pretty much going to let you drive the boat because this is right down your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't make sense, but you know what I mean.
It's right down my wheelhouse in the boat.
Yeah, how many metaphors are you going to mix there? So
good old mom sweat.
You know, the titular phrase.
Yeah. So the way that I'm going to do this is like, and I assume this was you that sent this over, but you sent over 6 segments basically. And
there's a whole presentation here. These are the main points of it. So I'll go where you take me. So.
All right, cool. So I have as your first one, ritual is something we do at specific times to forge, celebrate, and strengthen those meaningful connections that transcend time, distance, and death. Let's talk about that.
All right, guys, this is the question I was going to ask you. Thanksgiving was yesterday. Do you guys have that one thing that has to be on the table for Thanksgiving? Like, is it turkey? Is it sweet potatoes? Is it mac and cheese? Like, there's got to be mac and cheese.
I mean,
deviled eggs.
Deviled eggs. Okay.
Apple pie. I like desserts too much, so apple pie for me.
Yeah, pecan pie.
Oh yeah, maybe the pecan pie. I'm switching my answer.
Or even if it's not food, is there like, we get together at this time, but then we all break to go watch the Detroit game or the Dallas game or something like that? Like, what are those things that make it different?
The must for me is just having the family here, getting that time to spend together.
Normally when I do this, I talk about this huge sort of tortured metaphor about my family, and I'll give you the 30-second version of what ends up being kind of a long story. What I talk about is my twin sister brought her then boyfriend to meet my family, and I've got a pretty interesting family. I have a twin sister, an older sister, a brother who's 27 years younger than me, my mom, my stepmother. Like, all of us get along together, and getting together as a family is a really big deal. Well, one time for a summer get together, my sister brought her then boyfriend, and my brother-in-law at the time took Mike, his name, off into the back room and said, "Okay, here's what you need to know. This is what you need to know about a Kopenski family like Memorial Day. These are the players. These are the things you need to do. If you want to get on Sharon, my mom's good side, make sure you go up at some point and you do this, right? So I kind of told him what the lay of the land was. Mike did that. Awesome. Flying colors. He got invited back to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving at my mom's house when I was a kid was huge. If you didn't have a place to go for Thanksgiving, you went to Sharon's, right? 70 people easily. Same thing. Mike showed up. Huck took him in the back room and said, okay, this is Sharon's, like, this is the big deal. You know, Sharon wants help, but she doesn't want you to ask. You know, she doesn't want you to, if you ask her for help, she doesn't like that. So just in about a half an hour, go and pour water in the glasses. You do that and you take care of that and you're good. And there's other things that happen, you know, at Thanksgiving. Again, Mike did that, was great. Got invited back for Christmas. Christmas at my mom's house. I will tell you that I am 53 years old. I have missed exactly 2 Christmases at my mom's house, and it took a national pandemic for me to, like, you know, miss those. You don't miss Christmas at Sharon's. That was the big test. And Mike went there, and again, Huck took him in the back room and said, this is it, buddy. This is the big test. Told him the rules, the players, the whole thing. And again, Mike did that, and he did just fine. And I torture that metaphor and kind of compare it to what happens in our degrees. But the thing that people need to realize is when you think about those times that we get together, what we do is we kind of imbue them with meaning. We make them sacred. And how we do that is we basically say that these are things that we only do at a certain time, right? We only have this food or this china, or we only get together at this time. We do these things at this time to mark it as special and also mark that passage of time. We do that every year, every month, every whatever at this time for a particular reason. There is a prescriptive and a descriptive element to these ritualistic things that we do. It is descriptive. These are the things we value, and we do these things to describe these things that are really important to us. But it's also prescriptive. If you want to join our family, Mike, you better really appreciate Barb's cordon bleu chicken. You better know who the players are. Let me walk you down this hallway and tell you who the pictures are on Sharon's wall. So if you want to join our family, you need to also hold these things sacred and hold these values. So it's prescriptive and descriptive. And what all of these things do is they create meaningful connections, because that's really what Masonry offers to people, is meaningful connections. It's why people join. It's why they stay. And when those connections are meant to go away, or like they fade away, that's why guys leave. But these connections, they transcend things like time, distance, and death. And let me give you an example, because it's sitting here right on my desk. And you guys good Polish or German people? And you know what an oplotic is?
I do not.
Nope.
You all are making me sad now. All right. The oplotic is, it's like this communion wafery type thing. And my dad, he lost his mom pretty much the Christmas before I was born. And so Christmas was not a fun time for him. What my mom did is she started having like a Polish Christmas for my dad to kind of help him start to enjoy Christmas again. And we discovered this tradition of the oplotic. This wafer is, at the beginning of dinner, you take the wafer and you like break it. It's that symbolic sort of breaking of bread, and you pass it along around the table. And people may like say what they're thankful for, or just say Merry Christmas. But it's the idea of this is this wafer that we have. The legend behind it is, again, that this is something that we do to connect to our history as Polish people and as a family. Also, in theory, if you feed it to the animals, they will speak from midnight to morning, but it never really took place. My dad started doing that, as part of Christmas. When he died, it passed to me. During COVID, when I couldn't go to Sharon's, my mom, when she came to see me, brought me the oplotic from the table. Because there are certain connections that transcend things like time, distance, and death. Even though I couldn't be there for Christmas, that oplotic from the table that my entire family did, she brought to me so that I could also partake in that ritual of taking a little bite of that wafer and eating it and saying Merry Christmas. Mm-hmm. And so that really is what our ritual is meant to be. is to forge, celebrate, and maintain those meaningful connections that we have. Eric, I love taking notes.
Yes, no, I love this because this is, I mean, my home lodge, John J. Mercer Lodge, number 290 in Omaha, knows that this is my jam because I always like to take the work that we do, but like put it into real life. How can we analogize the work that's in the lodge room in real life, and like how does that work? Because I think sometimes what we do in the lodge room is fairly abstract, but so we have to be able to find ways outside of the lodge room to help kind of communicate that. And this is when you're talking about, I love the idea about like descriptive and prescriptive, and about the meaningful connections. And then when those meaningful connections kind of disappear, which I think kind of goes into like how serious and how I suppose, I guess how serious you take the work and communicating that. Yes, you do. You lose guys because
Well, think about this, right? Sorry, every membership committee of every jurisdiction, did that lovely little questionnaire where they're asking guys at like the one-day class or asking guys, well, why do you join? To me, that's not necessarily the most important question. The bigger question is, why do you stay? And if you ask guys who've been in for 10, 15 years, or even 3 years, almost all of them, 201, they don't say, it's our ritual. They say, it's the guys. It's the guys in my lodge. It's the fact that I go into my community and I go into this lodge and it's home. Well, okay. So then why are we doing some of the things that we do as jurisdictions and as lodges when really what we should be thinking about with our lodges is you aren't bringing a new member into your lodge. You're bringing somebody new into your family. So if your daughter was going to bring a son, like she's really serious about this guy and she wants to bring him into your family, what are the things that he needs to know and you want to do to make sure he's a member of this family? Now, about connections, about going away. So I have seen it far too often where you have some guy who's, in his 60s, 70s, grayer hair than mine, and you see him sitting alone in lodge. Why? Because, well, the younger guys, maybe they form their own clique, but even like, think about how you are now in lodge. When you go to lodge, right, maybe there's I don't know about you guys, but in my lodge, there's a bunch of younger people and we all kind of came around at the same time. So we all kind of have the same kind of jokes and the same kind of like, we can say, oh, Stanley, and like we joke about Stanley. Now imagine if you came to lodge and all of the stories you had to tell, all the jokes that kind of make, you kind of laugh and feel like at home, you have to explain to somebody. So instead of feeling connected to your lodge, you're like, God, this thing has too much context, right? I don't feel like I belong here anymore because all the faces I came around with, they aren't there. All the stories I want to tell, I'm just going to require a half an hour explanation to these guys. I don't belong here anymore. It's kind of like going back to your old high school 10 years after you graduate. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about when lodges allow those connections to die. When we keep assuming that it's the ritual will bring a guy back. We keep assuming that it's, whatever, our charity to bring a guy back. It's not. It's if a guy falls away, it's because something is happening in his life, but it doesn't mean he doesn't want to be a member of our family. It just means that something's going on right now. And when he comes back, he's still a member of our family. And so if a lodge will focus on those meaningful connections, forging, celebrating, and keeping them strong, I think it's amazing the things that they'll find. I'm sorry, Eric, I just kept talking. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. No, because like this was something I was in charge. I had to do education at our October business meeting, and I actually talked about this was a very specific thing that I talked about. It was like I wanted to explain to them and get everybody thinking about like, okay, we started with the like, why did you join Masonry? And I kind of brought up the whole idea that like when you put it on your petition, everybody kind of sounds the same because I don't think everybody really knows like what they're supposed to get out of it.
No clue.
That's why everybody kind of sounds the same. But what I did find that was very similar for everybody's thing, and we didn't go find everybody's petition. I found mine, but like everybody was looking for some sort of meaningful connection, but to do it with other people, not to like, I want to go do this thing by myself. They were like, it was always with other people.
Eric, how many Facebook friends do you have?
Oh, I think it's like 1,200.
I've got almost 3,000. You know how many I actually talk to on a regular basis?
Right.
Who aren't my family?
Yeah.
4.
Right.
You know?
I get that right.
Okay,
And-
I take it back. There's probably maybe more like 6 or 8, but I mean, yeah, it's kind of a rotating 6 or 8.
Okay.
I'm still taking it.
But I mean, in our modern world, surface connections are all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the wonderful things about a Masonic lodge is you can go there and you can access that generational knowledge without fear of judgment. You can actually sit there and say, God, guys, like my daughter's just being this, and I don't know what to do. And some guy says, I know exactly. She's 16, right? Let me tell you, I raised 3 girls. You and we're on the same roller coaster. I'm just 5 cars ahead of you. Let me tell you what the turn is coming up and what I did when I got there. And then likewise, you know, there's somebody in lodge I can say, dude, I'm like 3 cars ahead of you. Let me tell you what's coming up. And I can do that without judgment. And I can do that in a place that is acceptable. And I can do that in a place where, again, it's family and it feels like home. And when all of a sudden that place stops being meaningful to you and you feel disconnected, why the hell would you go back? Why in the world would you go back to your old high school 20 years after you graduate? What is there for you? Maybe I'm talking to the wrong guys. Maybe you guys go back every year. I don't know. But it's
No.
But the point was that like then I asked them, okay, so why do you stay? And obviously for the most part, it was, well, because of you guys or because of the brotherhood or because of like the connection that we have. And so then I talked about like my journey is like I joined because I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll see what this thing is about. I think subconsciously I was looking for a meaningful experience, but I wasn't like searching for a group. And so I go through it and I'm like, this is amazing. But then all of a sudden I start coming back and nobody's showing up. And I'm like, where is everybody? And it was kind of like, okay, well, this is kind of odd. I don't know if I want to join. But I was like, you know what? I'll just get involved. And so I learned some of the work. And then I thought maybe this will help me get appointed to an office so I can be engaged and do something. But then I didn't get asked to be involved. And actually, I was told, I don't need you right now, which I feel like is like a death sentence. It's the worst thing to say to somebody. And so I almost, like the year after I got raised, I was like, I might just not pay my dues and just be done with it. But then got back involved because he was like, hey, I really want you to do senior deacon. I feel like you would do a great job at this. And we need to try to revitalize the lodge and this whole thing. And so then for a period of time, for about 6-7 years, sorry for anybody that knows that reference. I didn't mean to do that. For about that long, then Masonry had a very specific meaning to me. It was a meaningful experience to come to Masonry and to come to lodge for the work that I was doing at the time. And we even had a brother come a couple months ago when we had an education presentation talking about making Masonry meaningful, that if we're going to do a degree work, to be meaningful about it and to, you know, take it seriously, but not ourselves seriously.
Who's the guy who spoke?
He was our current worshipful master, Celio Santos. But he was talking, he was talking about like how meaningful we have to continue to make this meaningful. And we had a guy that he's a plural member of our lodge show up. He hadn't been there in a while. And he was kind of going through some rough stuff. And he was like, this is exactly why I come here, because he's like, if I'm having a rough time at life, I want to come here for a meaningful experience, because I'm going here to try to like build my life back up. And he's like, the last thing I want to do is go to a lodge that's not taking anything seriously and is just there to, you know, go through the motions and then be done with it.
Well, and we're kind of getting away from this, but one of the things we realized on membership was, and I kind of jokingly calling it lodge polyamory. We get this idea that our home lodge is supposed to fulfill all of our needs. But what we realized is, and it's one specific person that I won't give his name, but he literally lived across the street from a Masonic lodge, and he was a member there. But he would drive 2.5 hours on the third Thursday of every month to a lodge that had phenomenal education, did a great ritual. They really invested in that time with the brethren. And I'm thinking, he's going to drive 2.5 hours to this place that meets his needs when he wouldn't cross the street for the lodge. It's okay. We need to rethink what we think of the value of the Masonic lodge and Masonic experience is. And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And that it's okay that lodges are different. It is okay that, I belong to my home lodge and I love being there. I also belong to a lodge that I tell them, this is my lodge that I'm going to throw spitballs at. That's my job. I want to sit in the back and throw spitballs. I don't really want an office. They make me do the lectures and charges because I can, and I love doing that for them. But yeah, and I belong to another lodge that, well, I belong to a lodge in Wisconsin. I've only sat in like twice, but it is okay, especially in this day and age when there's things like these podcasts and there's so many different ways to access masonry outside of your own little bubble. Go find the meaningful connections and meaningful experiences that mean the most to you. So.
Absolutely. And so this, I like number 3 here about like, who is our ritual for? What is, who is Christmas dinner for? Who is the most important person in the room? Because we've had this conversation before, and I don't know that my friends and I got to a definitive answer. So where do you stand on this situation here?
Okay. So this is where I should have taken the time and tortured this metaphor out. What I do is I say, all right, guys, if I were to ask a bunch of Masons who the most important person in the room is during our ritual, what are they going to say? And they're going to say, it's the candidate, right? Everything we do is for the candidate. Great. Yeah. I was working with a lodge, and they're really proud of the fact that they had this really ornate, gorgeous sword. And they actually, they soaked it in cold water so that when the guy came in and they pressed the sword to his chest, that he really felt that, had that great experience. And I said, guys, how does he know that's not a knitting needle? How does, what is that sword for? Well, it's for a candidate. I said, he can't see it. He never sees it. So who's that sword for? When it comes to our ritual, everybody is important, but for different reasons, because we all have different roles. Think about when you go to like Christmas dinner at your parents' house, right? You have a role because you're the kid. Maybe it is that you're always the person who carves the turkey, or you're always the person who says grace. Or maybe you just know that like if there's 1,000 people there, you're there to make things like social and keep things going. So know what our roles are. If you are the worshipful master, you're like my mom during Christmas dinner, right? You've got the plan, you've got your team, you're executing the plan. If you are the officers of a lodge, well, then you're like my brothers and sisters, right? We know what our roles are, and we know that our job is to support my mom and to make sure that the guests feel like have a good time. But we have a role there as officers to present the best ritual possible, to create the best experience possible for the candidate as well as the guys on the sidelines. The guys on the sidelines, again, think about Christmas dinner. Like, would you skip Christmas dinner at your parents' house because you're not the person being honored? What would it take for you to miss Christmas dinner at your parents' house, right? Or your kid's house, or your spouse's house? And so if you are on the sidelines during our ritual, you are there because you're a member of the family. Your role is you're supposed to be there for the candidate, but also for the lodge, because we're bringing a new family member in. You're supposed to also think about that time, meaningful connections, transcending things like time, distance, and death, that you knelt at that altar, or that you were walked around. Maybe you listen to the words and you remember the time that you took that obligation. Maybe you turn to the person next to you and like, do you remember when Dennis conferred the degree on me? Remember? And like, he totally like, and you talk to the guys on the sidelines, and it is that celebration of that connection of bringing somebody new into our family, or reforging and renewing those commitments and those connections as a family. It bothers me to no end when I see a guy on the sideline has his ritual out and is rehearsing, like mouthing the words along with the guys during the conferring of a degree. Happens all the time in Ohio. Or you see a guy on their cell phone. I'm thinking, if I have my cell phone out at Christmas dinner at my mom's house, there's a shoe coming in my direction. I mean, it's what's going to happen. So it also bugs me when guys leave right before the lecture. Like, really? You're going to leave before the main course and before dessert? Okay, if like it's snowing and you got to get home, great. But we spend all this time telling these brethren that they have joined a brotherhood that, you know, will be with them for the you know, rest of their lives. And what happens? Half the guys leave right before the lecture, or half the guys, you know, don't show up for the degree. The candidate definitely has a role, but he has no idea what his role is, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's blindfolded for much of it. Or he doesn't have the right context to fully appreciate anything until later, when somebody says, okay, here's what you did, or just so you know, right? The next thing coming up, here's what you need to know. Here's the things that you need to be prepared for. You want to be a member of our family? This is the rules. These are the things. So know what your role is in our ritual. And just for lack of a better word, I mean, or for lack of a better phrase, know your role. Just know what it is and own it. If whatever that means. So I have had that argument, and we can have it forever, about who's the most important person in a room during our ritual. Everybody is, for different reasons, to different extent, at different times. So I come from theater, and there's a guy named Peter Brook who says that for theater, all you need is a location, an actor, and an audience, but you need those three. And I would posit that in Masonry, you need the candidate, you need the officers, and you need the worshipful master. I'd also say you need the guys on the sideline. You can do it without guys on the sideline, but it's not the same.
No, it's not. This reminds me, there's a concept in Buddhism, which is also in Sufism, about dependent origination or dependent arising, where it's like, yes, candidate is the most important thing, but it doesn't matter if you don't have the senior deacon. Well, the senior deacon doesn't matter if you don't have the senior warden. Like, so then all of a sudden it's like, you just go all the way down through it, and it's like, so you all are, because you have roles. Everybody has a role. So each person is the most important thing, because it's without one of you that this doesn't work.
Well, and again, I sort of torture this in other ways. I like teams. Like, again, being in theater, like there's times that you're the lead actor, and there's times you're playing the third spear carrier on the left, right? Each of them are important in some way, shape, or form, you know? And or if you're in a football team, maybe your job is your special teams, right? You're on the field for all of like 6 minutes during the entire game, but those are pretty important 6 minutes that you're out there. So.
No, that's great. And so maybe along with this too, and I think this is something where like the sideline part comes into play here too, but I think about, like, there was a situation where I was helping with a degree, and at the time I was conferring, but we needed some guys for the second part of it. And I had offered to do an incredibly minor role. And the guy goes, well, that's just like bombing an ant with a nuclear bomb. And I'm like, but it's a role that needs to be filled, because I'm somebody that knows the ritual front to back, but I'm like, but it needs to be filled. I don't mind. I'll go do this little thing that doesn't require much. And I wonder, maybe you have some wisdom on this aspect, but how do we solve for like the desire of like, I only want big parts, or I only want small parts?
Okay.
That's a toughie.
Mm-hmm.
That's a toughie.
Well, I have a couple of stories to tell about this, but you're asking there's two different questions that you're asking.
Mhm.
And I want to answer both of them. So, yeah, let's do this way.
Okay.
About like calling in the big guns.
Mhm.
I call that the John Goodman effect, right? Like John Goodman, doesn't matter what he's in, he's fucking amazing. Like I will watch John Goodman, Don Cheadle, Rita Moreno. Like I don't care. Like if they're in anything, even if they have one line, they're amazing. They're just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying like putting you in that role is like nuking an ant.
Yeah,
So
like overkill.
what?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
what?
Yeah.
Right? Listen, I have told people that if what you need from me for this to go well is you need me to go park cars instead of give a lecture, fine, I'll go park cars, like whatever it takes. In my own life, right, when I was an actor, I remember getting really upset because I wasn't getting leading roles. I was getting like these little character roles, right? I was in Tartuffe. I was the guy who came on in the fifth act and basically like, wrap things up. In Fantastics, I was the old guy who was like the old actor who's sort of like the comedic relief. And I remember feeling really upset about this until a director came up to me and he said, "Chad, this is for a production of the Fantastics. I really wanted to play the lead part." And he said, "Chad, listen, I can tell you worked really hard, and I mean, you could obviously play this lead role, but nobody walked through that door with the right combination of skills that I think are necessary to play this small part, Henry, the old actor." And he said, "Yeah, at the end of the show, the audience is going to stand up and applaud and really remember, like, El Gallo, the lead actor. But the people in the know, the people who really get it, they're going to be applauding for you because they know what it takes to do that well." And I don't know that necessarily is the right thing to say to some guys, because if they have never really had the applause, I mean, they're craving the applause. But the truth is, I mean, yeah, applause is great, but it's never enough. But when you have that respect of like, I don't know, I mean, it's in our ritual, when you see two stewards who actually do the floor work like remarkably well and crisp, you remember that. When you see somebody give a lecture and it is intimate and informative and transformative, like that's what you remember. We all want to be Bruce Willis or Brad Pitt. We all want to be Brad Pitt in like 12 Monkeys, but I think we should all try to be Brad Pitt in Deadpool 2, right? He's on screen for 7 seconds. It's an awesome 7 seconds, and he makes the most out of those 7 seconds when you see his face. I don't think I answered your question, but
you did, because I mean, I don't know that there necessarily is a question or an answer to it without telling a bit of a story, like as you did, because I think you explained it right. That I mean, you like, to me, I enjoy, like, sometimes when I get like real simple stuff, because I'm like, I'm gonna do the hell out of it, and it's because then I could just give everything into it, like. It's neat because then it's like that little thing. I've seen it before with other guys just do the smallest part, but it's like, this is the part this guy has done at this lodge for the last 20 years, and he lives it.
thing.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to do it that way next time I have to do this. Like,
and that
yeah.
mimicry, by the way. Sorry. Two different stories. I've done lead roles, and it's amazing how, like, you lose sleep over those lead roles, right? Because you're carrying the entire thing on yourself. But if you have one of those character roles, I learned to love it. I'm like, oh my God, they put me in a small role where I'm in one scene. I get to do the weirdest stuff in theater. Like I've done sword fights where I've like rolled down the stairs, got up and sang a song. No, Lee Dirt didn't get to do that, but I did.
Yeah.
The other thing is those moments you talk about, like those, we love the way that Jimmy gives the apron lecture. And so when I learn it, I'm going to do it just like Jimmy. One of the things I talk about with lodges is I ask guys, like, what is it that you remember about your degree experience? And I tell this story a lot because it is amazing to me. One of the lodges I go to, I asked this question, and the guy said, well, when they put the apron on me the first time, it was my dad who put it on me. And when he put it on, he like cranked those straps, right, when he tied it. And so that knot was super tight. And he said, Chad, all of a sudden I got it. Like I felt the weight of that apron around my waist. I felt that binding, and I felt bound for the first time in my life. And all of a sudden it started to make sense to me what I had just said at the altar, however many seconds ago. I was bound to what I had just said. And the guy said that in lodge, and we all did what you all did, which is we all sat back and went, whoa. So now guess what that lodge does? Every time they do an EA, they crank the bejesus out of those straps on that guy. You can almost hear audible like whimpers of pain from the EA. But afterwards, they say, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what we did and why we did it. And now that's that point of pride. It's that we are the lodge that does this. And meaningful connections, transcending things like time, distance, and death. Those things that make the lodge, their own special little thing. And when you think about our ritual, it's just in any theatrical play or any movie, it's a moment. It's moment to moment to moment to moment. And those are moments that can be crafted, however much craft you want to put into them or not.
So then this goes perfectly into, you're talking about it a little bit right now, but about the whole point of like, what is it that you want the candidate at the end of the night to remember? And I think that's a difficult thing to talk. Well, it's not difficult to talk about, but it's kind of difficult to think in some sense, because we know that like each time they go through each degree, it is that like the metaphor, you're drinking from a fire hose. So how, like,
yeah, but think about this, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, two things I remember the most about my EA degree. One, it was January 5th. It was negative bazillion outside. And at the time I was much heavier, and I am still not the happiest about my body. And they put me in this pair of like blue pajamas, and I'm standing there like blindfolded, shirtless, in these weird clothes I don't have, in a room that's freezing my ass off, right? Then I knock on the door, I walk in, I can't see anything, but I hear a lot of people breathing. And at some point, they come to me, and they said, arise, follow your guide, and fear no danger. And that moment to me, all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, people don't talk like that normally. So this was written into the ritual. That this ritual is hundreds of years old. So that meant 100 years ago, somebody had the foresight to say, dude, I know this is weird, but we got you.
Mm-hmm.
Follow your guide and fear no danger.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like I can relax now. I don't have to be on, or like I got to be present, but I don't have to be vigilant because somebody's got me. And so I tell you, that moment meant so much to me that when I confer the degree, I put some meaning into that moment. What do you want the guy to remember? I have a lodge that I've worked with where all the guys get dressed up like to the nines, and they get in this really classic car, and all the officers show up at this guy's lodge, knock on the door. Is John here? And they all like grab him, put him in the car, drive him to lodge. And they do this because they're like, this is, we're going to carry you womb to tomb. I'm thinking, yeah, if I'm that guy's wife, I'm thinking the mafia just showed up to take my husband somewhere. 9 guys in suits showed up and put him in a car and drove him off. But again, they explained to the guy why they do what they do and why it's important to them. I'm in New York, right? And in one of the degrees, they brought me into a chamber of reflection. And I remember that the guy giving me the lecture in there was having a really difficult time remembering his lines. And so he was apologizing every other sentence. Sorry. Oh, God. Oh, so, and then the rest of the night, he kept coming back to me to say, I'm so sorry I messed that up. And by the end of the night, I'm thinking, why am I having to make you feel better? Because this is supposed to be about me, right? Because I'm the most important person in the room. And secondly, how dare you make me think that I got something substandard? Right. So what I remember about that degree, I remember that he was telling me how much what I got sucked when I thought it was so wonderful.
Yes. That's okay. So one of my philosophies when it comes to guys is let them tell you no, and also let them have the experience that they're having. That is a big thing that we try to teach is hey, during practice, if you want to apologize or work through it, okay, that's fine. We're at practice. But if we're in a tiled meeting, the only thing that's happening is the work. There's no apologies, no, and because that's a very good way of putting the point about now you've just made me think that I'm getting crap for an experience here because you're just constantly doing this thing.
This is supposed to be transformative, and you're pulling me out of the experience.
Yeah.
And in theater, we tell people the audience doesn't know you screw up until you tell them.
Right.
So don't tell them. I mean, they're not. At the end of the night, do you want them to remember that? Well, it was a great degree, but he said "and" as opposed to at this particular point. He said retired as opposed to retarded, or retarded as opposed to retired at this particular point in time. No, that's not what he's going to remember. When he's on his way home, driving the car, what do you want him to remember? When he's talking to his wife the next day and she's like, how was it? He's like, what do you want him to say? And realize that as a lodge, you have the power to craft that within your jurisdiction, within reason. We've talked about this.
Yes.
But even within your jurisdiction, even if it is the most prescriptive ritual in the world, you have the power to craft your own lodge experience.
I kind of think, yes, absolutely. And I'm thinking about this when you're talking about the earlier portion about who's the most important person. And it's kind of well, each one of us individually is responsible for the next thing. We all fit together. And it's kind of okay, then you can look at the work and we'll say, well, what's the most important part of the degree? Whichever part that we're on right now is the most important part, because you keep the part before and the part after don't exist without that.
Well, and here's something that I do. Again, coming from a theater background, there's a book of essays. And again, it's Peter Brook. And Peter Brook, he did a series of essays about theater. He did one on something called the Holy Theater. And what he talks about is that in the Holy Theater, the actors, they have prepared themselves physically, mentally, with their lines, whatever, in such a way that they prepare themselves in such a way.
Hi, listeners. I'm Brother Samuel.
I'm Brother Gabriel.
And I'm Brother Ryan.
And we're the hosts of the Third Degree Masonic Podcast. We hope you're enjoying Studio 357 as much as we are. If you're looking for further knowledge on Masonic topics, then check us out on the same platforms as Studio 357. And remember, craftsmen,
keep your working tools in order.
And always be on the level.
Now let's get back to Studio 357.
Demonstrate that love never ends through the commitment to support past and present service members, the communities that surround them, and the loved ones of those whom we will never forget. Visit deganpage.org for more information. At Homeward Handyman Services, we pride ourselves on being honest and giving every job the attention it deserves. Owned and operated by a master mason with 2 decades of expertise in home repair. We are bonded and insured, and we carry the highest standards when it comes to taking care of your home. Whether you need a faucet changed or a light remodel, we can take care of your home improvement needs. Call Michael at 402-915-0824 today for a free estimate.
When it comes to something as important as insurance, it's imperative that you work with an agency who has an in-depth knowledge of multiple insurance products, companies, and guidelines, not just one. We are completely independent agents, and we work for your best interests. We are Mason-friendly. We have locations in Fremont and Elkhorn. We provide policies for virtually all of your personal and commercial needs, including health and dental. Visit our website at www.theinsurancecenterinc.com. We're available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
To create a circumstance where, if the wind flows right, if lightning strikes, that a quickening can happen. And the quickening, he said, is when you can pierce the veil and glimpse the face of God. That even as actors, that may not happen every time you do a play, but you want to put yourself in the best possible position so that you can create the conditions for that to happen. So what that means for us as ritualists is, 1, know our lines. 2, know our role. And we're going to get into this, but and working together as a team. In theater, we say there's no greater feeling than being good in a good show. Meaning that, and even think about it if you're on a sports team. If your team won a championship, and to know that your team was good and that they were good because of your contribution, you made a valuable contribution to something that is good and successful. Those are the things that make you smile at 3 o'clock in the morning, 20 years after they happen. Those are those things that guys still put on their letter jackets and go back to their high school 20 years later, right? Because there's no greater feeling like being good in a good show. And once you have that once, you will chase it forever. You will, do a lot of like crappy shows, but you also know that you're going to put yourself in the best possible position to be good in a good show again. And the same thing with our ritual.
So then you're talking about, you leading really nicely into this about, I love the way that you said this, that perfect your ritual. Perfect isn't an adjective, it's a verb.
So I studied martial arts for many years, and I remember, this is a weird analogy, but bear with me. When you first start off, like you're trying to learn how to throw a punch. And so you work forever and forever to learn how to throw that one punch. And so if somebody comes up to you and says, throw a punch, you will throw that one straight punch that you've practiced 1,000 times. Then you start to kind of get more knowledge in the art, and you start to have more different experiences. And maybe you get older and your body changes, and you realize that there's not just one punch, there's a whole boatload of punches. But there's maybe these 3 zones that you really kind of, we'll go with 4 zones for right now that you're going to focus on. So you focus on punches in those 4 zones. So someone asks you to throw a punch, like, well, where? Like what? You try to figure out what the right punch is. Then as you get older and you really figure out there's actually like 17 different kinds of punches, and there's about 8 different zones you can punch from. You can't. And so if somebody asks you to throw a punch, it's not simple, because what's the terrain? What's the attack that led into it? What am I trying to set up? It is much more complicated than just throw a punch. What I mean by our ritual is, and also realize this, and this is I tell a funny story about my family, but I say that once you realize you're screwed, it's incredibly liberating. Once you realize that with your ritual, it is never going to be absolutely perfect. It's not. So once you realize you're screwed, great. No matter what I do, it is at best 99.9% awesome. Great. Pressure's off. But what that means is I'm going to keep working on that to make it better. To when I get better information, I'll do things differently. Maybe I say the ritual 100,000 times, but all of a sudden, as I've gotten older, oh, this symbol means more to me now. It means something different to me now. Okay, maybe that'll change my performance. Maybe as I get older and I don't have the same kind of voice or the same kind of physicality anymore, then it's, it changes. Maybe I see something at another lodge like, oh, that's really cool. I'm going to totally steal that. Your lodge, your ritual is never going to be perfect. It's never going to be static, because Masonry in itself is not a static thing. It's a practice. It is something that you have to constantly put into motion. That's why I appreciate that you guys asked me like about what I've done in the past. I think it's great, but to me, my accomplishments, and I'm proud of them, but I'd rather people ask me, what am I doing today in Masonry? Right? How am I learning, practicing Masonry today? Love the stuff that I've done, but all that has led me here. With my ritual, you are constantly trying to make it better. And sometimes it's not about you. Maybe you've perfected, you have it good with, you, but now you're on a different team. Okay, like how am I a senior warden with him as master or him as junior deacon? It is constantly in a state of trying to understand it, trying to communicate it, and never resting with it. So that's why I say perfect your ritual. Don't try to make it perfect.
Yeah, and I think I like that you're talking. I love that way of explaining it, because this ritual and perfection and proficiency that we have, it is like a trigger word for the entire state of Nebraska, to be completely honest. Depends on what side you're on.
So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So this is one of those questions that doesn't really have a good answer, but it's what we're going to go with. So what is more important? What is more important to you? Is it more important to you that the students you work with learn the concepts of, what you're trying to teach them? Or is it more important to you that they get those lessons using the exact same words every time? What's more important to you? That people understand the story of Hamlet? Or is it important to you that they get Shakespeare's version of the story of Hamlet? Both are valid. Both are important, but what's more important to you at this particular point in time?
For me, there's a third part, actually. For me, it's like, so whether it's teaching the kids or it's doing the ritual as grand custodian or even as deputy grand custodian, I actually just kind of want you to get inspired for the work. I kind of want you to start thinking of it in your own way, and you see it. And I don't need you to be like, okay, Eric said this, and this, or Mr. E said this, and this, and I'm going to make sure I know this exactly to the thing. I want you to go, this was an incredible experience. I had a nice time. I kind of feel motivated, and I want to do this on my own now. I want to go and do it.
As an actor, one of the things how I learned my lines is I used to do so many different methods, but I'm a big fan of the operative words. Find like the most important words in a sentence, and then I memorize those. And so then if all else fails, I know that, okay, I need to make sure that I say these words or get this idea out. It drives people who have to like prompt me crazy, because one time I was giving a lecture, and behind me was a guy named Charlie who like knew the ritual like word perfect. And behind him, on this side was my buddy Brad, who was my prompter. And I'm giving this lecture, and I could tell that I had missed a word or something was out of order, because I'd either hear Charlie shuffling in his seat or Brad shuffling in his seat, flipping pages, trying to figure out where the hell I was. And I got to be honest, every time I heard noise behind me, I just felt even more better, like more inspired and more like, yep, this is the fuel. Because what? They weren't out there. I was.
Yeah.
Right. I at least am up there taking my shot. And two, when again, the candidate doesn't know what the right words are, but they know what the meaning is. So for me in that moment, it was more important to me that they get the story and they get the lesson, as opposed to they get the words that, whoever modified from Preston Webb to create the Ohio ritual that, I've learned. So
yeah, I see. You're right. I like the idea of, I want you to capture the idea. I want you to capture the concept of what I'm teaching or what I'm portraying to you. What's really important to me after that is it gets you to a place where you're like, now I want to experience that for myself. Because yes, I can sit there and teach you as much as humanly possible as I want. I can, whether it's in class or in lodge, but the main thing that I need you to do it too. That's going to be one of the most important pieces for you to understand what we're trying to teach here. And I think that's, yeah.
Let's see, you can't see this. That's me giving a lecture in one of the lodges. Nice. So that's my buddy Shearer that I talk about. So, but yeah, anyway, when I do a lecture, I actually sit and talk to the person, not at them. And I have this great book that I get to use from the mid 1860s, and the experience I want them to have is I want them to have somebody talking to them, as opposed to just, standing next to them and showing them the slides in front of them.
Yeah.
Different experience. Anyway.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. That's when especially with like the middle chamber, because it is such a long lecture. And there's so much information, and to me, the middle chamber is actually explaining how to do the work that we do. It's giving you the tools. And so to me, I approach that as a teacher. You know what? I'm going to teach you this. I'm going to talk to you this. As you can tell, I talk with my hands a lot. There are some people, they do it and it's like this, and they're the whole thing. And I just don't, I like that you're doing it in a very personal way. That's an amazing picture.
Remember this. In general, people can only pass on what they've been given, right? So if all they've ever seen is, here are the big, magic lantern slides, and I'm going to stand next to you, and I'm not even going to look at you. I'm just going to talk to the screen and hope you come along. That's all they've ever known. That's what they think. That's the way they think it's supposed to be. People can only pass on what they're given. So if they've been given a flat experience, then that's what they're going to pass on. If they've been given something that's a little, that is meaningful, transformative, that's what they'll pass on. Now, in my mind, I think every Mason has to, Masonry is a way to look at the world. And all of us are just trying to figure out the way the world works and our place in it. And so that means that each of us has to kind of come to Masonry and figure out how to interpret it and express it in our own lives. And so there's a hugely personal and individual part of Masonry, but it's also supported by zillions of other guys across time who've gone through the exact same journey. Some, again, living with you, some, you can read their work. But so what that means for our ritual is that it is okay to make it transformative. It is okay to make it educational. It is okay to, in a way, say to somebody, this is the way that I see things. This is what makes sense to me. And now I can help you, I can help you make sense out of it. You make sense out of it yourself.
So then Okay. To you then, like, there's a lot going on, and we've covered a lot of ground in terms of like what's most important, who's most important, how do we perfect a ritual, and what's that?
I talk a lot.
I know that's okay.
I
These
tell you,
guys know that I do too.
The Pips back there, the Supremes, the the East Side boys, they're having a good old time back there. I don't know what they're doing. So
So then, like, I'm kind of going through the notes here, but like,
Yep.
you have on number 6, it's basically focus on connections. You know, if you're with family, it doesn't matter if you're eating filet mignon, et cetera, et cetera. So when you say focus on connections, does that, do you mean like during degrees, during lodge, during everything? Like, how do you see that?
sure, ask the easy question.
Yeah.
Why it's the last one?
I'm a storyteller. Let me tell you a story, and I've told this 1,000 times.
Please do, because my dad was a storyteller, so this is nothing new to me.
My buddy Brad, he was a lodge education officer at a lodge that I belonged to in Ohio, and Brad did what I thought was one of the best educational programs ever seen. And it wasn't Pike. It wasn't a deep discussion of the use of the semicolon in ritual. He found an old Eastern Star cookbook, and Brad stood up and he said, "Let's look at this." And this was a Eastern Star cookbook from that lodge 30 years ago. And so here's like the name of the woman and this Jello monstrosity that she used to bring. All the guys in lodge are like, just started telling stories. I remember that. I remember she brought that. Oh, I remember her. Oh, she was a tough woman. Like all of a sudden, the old guys are telling the stories. And you would think like classic Masonic education would say, that is not education. That is a use. That is a waste of your brother's time. The younger guys aren't going to go for that. I got to tell you, the younger guys in lodge were lapping it up. Why? Because they're learning the family stories. Now they're in on the joke. Now they can all sit. Now they can walk down the hall and be like, "Yeah, it's funny. I remember hearing this really funny story about Jenny Wagner." And I must say that one of the neatest moments of that educational experience. It's a brother who's no longer with us, and I miss him and I love him. And there was a recipe in there for microwave Chex Mix, and it was from his wife. And his wife died like 25, 30 years ago. And he sat there. And he said, "I worked extra shifts for half a year to buy that microwave." That was back when microwaves like cost the same as a car. And he said, "I remember her making that for the first time, and she burned it, and the house smelled awful." and we're like, "What'd you do?" Because I ate it. Of course you eat it. It's your wife. Like it's like, listen, I ate a lot of really crappy Chex Mix until she got that recipe right. And then he said, "Oh, but when she did, it was amazing." Now I got to tell you, I never met this woman. I know nothing about her. She's been dead a long time. But if you ever ask me about her, I'm going to tell you this: that woman was loved. She was absolutely loved by that man. And all of us in lodge who maybe some of us were dating, some of us were married, some of us may be single, but we got it. And the best part about it to me was that some of the brethren actually went and made that recipe and brought it over to his house. He says, "I haven't had this in 30 years. Now, that is not classic Masonic education, but that sure is focusing on the meaningful connections in the lodge. It sure is creating a family. And so when the new guy comes in, instead of being scared of him because he's whatever generation that he's in, he's a member of the family. He's the next generation of a family. When I'm a big fan of an author named Aldo Leopold, and Aldo Leopold, he talks about this nature ethic, and he has this piece of writing he does called "Think Like a Mountain." And my takeaway from that piece was that, there was a time before you, and there is a time after you, but right now is the time of you, and you have a duty to both what came before and what came after. So, what is your duty? And what that tells you is that it's not about you, but it sure is up to you, isn't it? Because you've got a duty to what came before and what comes after. So, if I'm in a lodge and I'm creating my family, I have a duty to the picture of those old guys on the wall. And I got a duty to that new EA who just walked in the door to make sure he knows what it means to be a member of my family. Because guess what? In 20 or 30 years, now it's all up to him. And what do I want him to remember? And what do I want him to say? What do I want him to value? What do I want to do? What do I want my family to be 20 years from now when I'm not here? That's what I mean by focusing on the connections.
This is fantastic. I love that. I'm
That was a lot.
I'm a big fan of Masonic. If it's coming from a brother, it's Masonic education as far as I'm concerned. I think there's a time and a place to get into the academics of it. But I think a lot of times while we're there, like my lodge, we do it during dinner before the meeting, so we can have PowerPoints and stuff like that. But you said something in the very beginning that peaked. I was like, hey, I never thought about it that way. And I think it's something that maybe we don't think about enough. You said, I went from have to want to. And like, I was like, holy shit, that's good. And so without asking you, how did you go from want to have to? How did you go from want to have to? Like, what happens to get to that point of have to want to?
You're asking two distinct questions there. And because of that, there's two different answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I sort of firmly bought into that whole American idea that if a little bit of something is good, a lot must be better. And so when I started doing Masonry, I was that guy who, you ever met a guy who like buys a Ferrari and then like he's wearing the Ferrari coat, Ferrari hat, has the Ferrari keychain, and every chance he gets, he'll bring up that he's driving a Ferrari. I was that guy with Masonry. Everybody should be a Mason. And then for some reason, people thought I could do something. And all of a sudden I started getting on different committees and I started getting asked to do different things. And I'm honored that I was asked. And I'm really proud of the things that I've been able to do in my Masonic career. But with that comes a sense of obligation, right? We need you to do this. Can you please do this? Can you, and everything you do is a choice. I have a wife and I have a daughter. And there were plenty of times when you are grabbing that apron case to leave and nobody ever checks you and says, do you really have to go to this meeting? Do you really have to get on that phone call? Do you really have to do these things? And sometimes you do, because that is the promise you made, the obligation you made. Sometimes the expectation is, I have to do this. But what also comes with that, it's like if you're a comic book fan and all of a sudden you decide to open up a comic book store, man, comics go from being something that you really enjoy to something that you have to do. It becomes something where joy is no longer part of the equation. It can't be, because that's not the focus of your role and your duty. So not to say that things weren't fun and things weren't enjoyable, but how did it start? when I went to grab my apron case and my little girl at the time grabbed my apron case and said, "Do you really have to go to this meeting?" And I looked at her, I'm like, no, I do not. Not at all. I can go and watch you play Roblox. Absolutely. And I also started looking at, I'll be honest, I do a whole presentation about how masonry made me a better dad. And there's, and realizing that, that 24-inch gauge, sometimes the most important place for me to be isn't at that lodge meeting. Sometimes the most important place for me to be is sitting downstairs while my wife is watching some crappy true crime documentary, and I'm just sitting there on my phone playing a game. Sometimes that's the most important place for me to be. So recognizing that our limits are our opportunities, and that it's okay to set limits with masonry. That it's okay to be adjacent. It's okay to say no. It is okay to be on the periphery of masonry, because, and I did this with theater too, is when it's have to, then being successful is a particular definition. I have to get this done. I have to do this. When it's I want to, well, then success looks very differently. Oh, I want to go to this meeting. I want these guys serve the best pie before meeting. I want to go there. Oh man, this guy's getting installed. I want to go see my buddy do this. My wife wants me to load up the car and with all the antiques she just bought at this auction. Absolutely. I want to go do that. Why? Because I want to hear her talk about all the weird shit she just bought. And I have no interest in it whatsoever, but she's really excited about it. And so the other nice thing about want to is that, remember I talked about sort of lodge polyamory? I get to pick and choose the Masonic experiences that I have. If I want to come on this podcast, I reach out to you guys and you thankfully let me come on and talk to you guys. If I want to listen to Robert Johnson on his podcast, I want to talk to Jim Hall. If I want to drive to Arts and Sciences, which is 2 hours away from me, to go see their experience. If I just want to call up Dave Dougherty from the High Lodge of Research and talk to him, that means that I get to choose the experiences that I want, that feed me, that nourish me, that make me enjoy masonry. And enjoy isn't even like the right word. It makes me live masonry, because then masonry is not only my duty, but it's my duty and my joy, but part of it. Because, if masonry is a lens that you can kind of look at the world and figure out your place in it, masonry helped me realize that, you know what, my entire life isn't masonry. My entire life is also my job. And, my dad used to joke and say that, if you were to ask him what the top 3 words are, like you ask him, hey, who are you? What are those top 3 words? And he would say, father, husband, friend. His job was nowhere on there. His veteran status was nowhere on there. His bank account was nowhere on there. And when I meet guys now and, they'll say, hey, what do those words describe you? Freemason is like, second or third. And that's okay. For some guys, that's what that is for them. For a lot of my life, not a lot of my life, for the 15 years I've been a Mason, for a good 5 years, I would say Freemasonry was in that first, second, or third spot. I can tell you right now, even though I'm incredibly involved and I at the local, state, national level, if you were to ask me my top 3 words, Freemason's probably around 5 or 6. Because it's want to, not have to.
And that's that is a really important piece. I think a lot of people maybe don't think about. I was asked by somebody a couple of years ago, do you want to be remembered as an incredible Mason or an incredible husband? When it came to time. And it was like, you can imagine that things might have shifted a little bit at the time, because I was incredibly inundated with stuff, and it's a wake up call, you know.
And we call up guys. They don't come to lodge, and we beat the bejesus out of them. Why don't you come to lodge? Sorry. One of the things we did with membership and education is we did these sort of 5 guideposts for supporting our ritual. We talked about remove the obstacle. Like, maybe for right now, the guy can't come to lodge because his job has changed, or because he's sick, or because something else is going on. Does that mean he's no longer a brother? He's no longer a Mason? No. It just means that both y'all have to work harder to keep that connection going.
Yeah.
Maybe it also means the lodge has to maybe change their definition. Maybe I'm talking too much, but I'll tell this story. And I tell this story often. There's a lodge that a friend of mine went to. His job changed, so he couldn't be there as often. When the lodge called him and said, like, yeah, my wife's job has changed, I gotta be there to take care of my kids. The lodge said, okay, bring your kids to lodge. We'll hold dinner beforehand. We got 2 guys who are retired teachers, have them bring their homework. We'll go to a consent agenda so that the meetings are shorter, so we can get you out of here. Oh, and by the way, tell your wife when she gets off work, we'll keep a hot plate for her so that she can come. And it's so simple, but all of a sudden the lodge stopped punishing a guy for not being there. And right, why would you punish your sister because she had to work, so she had to miss Christmas dinner? Why wouldn't you just move Christmas dinner so that she could be there? Why wouldn't you remove the obstacle so that your family could be together? And so, yeah, that's what if we think about it like a family, and what will you do for your family? It's amazing how the solutions are sitting. They're much simpler than we think they are.
It's true. Now, I suppose one of the last things I want to ask you, if you're willing to talk about it, which I would imagine. All right. You mentioned that that Masonry had helped you become a better father. Is that something you can talk about a little bit, or explain like your experience with that?
Okay. So one of the things, I'm going to get into this, but it's going to be a little bit different. Do you know what a Pechakucha is?
I do not.
Okay. This is why you guys need to come to the Midwest Conference at Masonic Education, because I did this for the first time in Iowa years ago. A Pechakucha is a style of presentation that anybody can do, but also if you are experienced, it's difficult to do well. It basically is 20 images on screen for 20 seconds at a time. I do them 30 images on screen, 30 seconds at a time, to make a presentation that's exactly 15 minutes. I've done one on how Freemasonry made me a better father, and I can do it at the drop of a hat. So I don't want to give you the whole 15 minutes, but I use as a framing tool, I use the working tools. And I talk about how a contemplation of those tools made me, again, when you start to really look at it and really think about, well, what does it mean to apply the 24-inch gauge? What does it mean to use, the common gavel? The common gavel, nobody gets the life that they wish for, they get the life that they work for. And so when you are crafting your life, I always thought it was interesting that common gavel is something to be used to shape, but it's also an instrument of pain. It's also something that can hurt because it requires, significant reflection. I'm not answering your question, but I'm kind of giving you the framing device. If you ever want to hear the whole 15-minute thing, I'll send you the link. But the basic thing is this. If you look at those particular tools and actually think about, what does it mean? How do I spend my time? Because here's the thing people don't realize, right? Time is our only real currency. How a person spends their time says everything about them, more than their words. How they spend their time, right? So I looked at it and like, well, how do I spend my time? Am I using it the most efficiently? Does how I spend my time reflect the values that I say that I have? If not, I either need to change my behavior or change my values. One of the two. I can sit there and say, oh, family, 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 but I'm grabbing my apron case and I'm leaving 4 out of the 5 days a week. Either change my values or change my actions. Okay. Because nobody gets the life that they wish for. They get the life that they work for. I can sit there and say, God, I hate the fact that I'm 400 pounds. I wish something would happen. Or I can stop drinking 2 liters of Dr. Pepper 3 times a day and do something different. And it's all a choice, right? My daughter is 16. I still get her on the bus every morning, and I still get her off the bus in the afternoon. Why? She doesn't really need to, but it's important to me. So that means I haven't worked out in the mornings in a while. It's all a choice. Realizing again that my relationship with my wife is just as important as my relationship with my daughter. So when a husband and wife say, wow, we're all about the kids. Yeah, but remember how we said in ritual, right? Or in theater, you need the audience, the location, and the actor. In a marriage, you got to have you and your wife or your spouse got to be okay so that you can do the stuff for the kids. So that means that I need to be a better husband and make my wife a priority, and not just in my words, but in my actions. And it doesn't need to be the big things like, whatever. It's the small everyday things. That's how you build a life is not the big promises you make at 2:00 in the morning. It's the small things you do every single day. And realizing masonry, the plumb, the square, the level. How do I treat people? How do I want them to be remembered? What do I want them to say about me? Well, yeah, he's funny. Okay. He's kind. Oh, well, what does kind mean? Kind is strength. I want people to think of me as being strong enough to be kind, wise enough to be gentle. And I want them to remember me as being giving, because the most amazing martial artists and most amazing actors I ever met were the guys who were the most humble and were the most giving. Why? Because they had nothing to prove to anybody except themselves. And when I was like 14 or 15 and met some of those guys, I'm like, I want to be remembered that way. Now, granted, I had to go through a lot of like arrogance and being obnoxious to get there. But when I really started to use masonry to reflect on me, like, how do I want to be remembered? How do I want to treat people? Okay. And then when my parents sort of had this big thing that they believe that when you go to heaven, God asks you 2 questions. How well did you use the gifts I gave you? And how well did you use them to help other people? And I see that lesson all throughout masonry. And so looking at the perfect ashlar and looking at the trowel. Perfect ashlar is a nice rock, but its true beauty is really revealed when you take the perfect ashlar of my life and the perfect ashlar of your life, and we cement them together to build something that lasts generations. And whether that is a family, whether that is a lodge, whether it's a community, whether it's a legacy of a body of knowledge, that understanding that it isn't about me. It's about me, but it's back. I said earlier that it's not about me, but it's up to me. I think it's the same thing. That creating the perfect ashlar of my life and doing nothing with it is nothing. If I take the perfect ashlar of my life, which means it's up to me to create that perfect ashlar, that's awesome. But it's not about me. It's about what we do together, taking my ashlar with yours to build something that lives beyond me. That is the 7-minute version of the 15-minute version or the original 45-minute version of taking the working tools and actually doing that reflection. Here's what I said. Do my actions match what I say? If not, so
I love that because I'm going to take that to my lodge and be like, listen up, dudes. We got to talk. No, thank you.
We have a thing in Ohio called the Royal Schofield Society, and it's an educational honor society. And one of the things we ask guys to do is exactly that. We ask them to write a paper explaining how the working tools, what are those, how have you actually incorporated those into your life? And I got to tell you, that is some of the most beautiful Masonic writing I have ever read in my life, is guys figuring that shit out. And reading that makes me go, oh, I never thought of it that way. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. No, it is. You're hearing how other people interpret these things, and I love that. It's beautiful. Now I feel like I have absolutely been driving this train. Gabe, Joe,
I've been talking for 2.5 hours. What are you talking about?
Honestly, we've had an excellent time on the Eric and Chad show.
Yeah, no, this is great.
Well, you put two
I warned you guys. If you,
Oh no,
listen,
no,
it is
a beautiful thing.
If you would have asked the Time for Fellowship guys or the third degree guys, they'd have told you, yeah, just Chad talks.
Oh, I listened to them all. I was well prepared. But no, it's
So, you're okay if I shout out Jason Larry then, right? So.
Yes, absolutely. We started this thing to learn more about masonry, and I think I've learned a lot tonight, personally.
Me too.
So should we just wrap this up then?
Yeah, do our artifact and wrap it
Oh
up.
yeah, our artifact of the week at a local antique store here in Omaha. We found we'll get pictures of those up on socials like usual. We found an Eastern Star tea set. Has the saucer and the teacup and the sugar bowl and the little creamer.
That's really cool.
I think, do you put creamer in tea? I don't know. I don't drink tea.
You can. English tea.
I'm assuming. I'm just assuming that's what it is. But yeah, we'll get pictures up that on our social.
Can I show you my funny Masonic artifact of the week?
No.
All right, fine.
Yes, you may. Now go for it.
So one of the big jokes in Ohio is that if you say meaningful connections 3 times, I appear. Kind of like Beetlejuice. And so at Grand Lodge this year, a friend of mine made pins that are for the Chad Kopenski fan club. And it says meaningful connections on the bottom.
Oh my God.
That's a picture of me when I'm 17.
I love it.
With my big mullet holding a dog that's dead. But yeah, and it's got the 70s vibe. He was selling these at Grand Lodge, and he's going to sell them at the Midwest Conference as well. But yeah, this is going to be really funny to me in 10 years when people really, I'm nobody, and nobody knows who I am, or should they, but these are just damn funny. So, but that's what masonry is. It's those in jokes, those family things that make it everything. So
yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. Chad, thanks for chatting with me. I was super excited about this, and originally I wasn't going to be able to make it. And I know there was talks of like, oh no, we're going to try to schedule. And I was like, can you guys let me do this virtually, please? Because this is my jam. So
and
I'm glad it worked out.
As you go through this year, if I can be of any help, if you want to call me and you want to run some ideas by me, or you want to, this is what I live for. Like, if I can do anything to help you as you go through your year, absolutely, I'm there. So
right on. Appreciate that.
I don't even know if I have a shout out, dude. You have one?
No.
I do have a question for you, Eric. How is Waffles doing?
Waffles is doing fantastic. I think she's got another appointment coming up either next week or the week after that, but you'd never know. She's doing great. She's still mad at me whenever I leave the house. So
dog, cat, lizard, duck, or child?
Dog. Yeah. I wish I had I don't wish I had a child named Waffles. I'm glad I have a dog named Waffles.
Truly.
She has cancer. And so she's doing chemo. She's got little pills that she takes, but like, you never know. She's still Waffles.
You can't see it. I had a dog named Trouble. I always love like dog names that are that aren't like gun or liquor names or a girl's name. I like things like, I like.
Yeah.
Okay, the fact that the three of you just laughed back there at the pips means how many of you have dogs that are named after guns or liquor?
I had a dog named
Or a girl's
Barky,
name.
so I don't know if that
Barky.
works. Oh,
Okay.
okay. Actually, I have a cat named Mojito. So
Fair enough. Cats can be there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've yet to have a dog. We have one animal named after a food. We have a cat named Pierogi because he showed up on National Pierogi Day, but it's Purrogi, pierogi.
Oh, I love
of
it.
course,
but I had a dog. You have a dog named Waffles. I had a dog named Trouble, and she was the best dog ever. And I figured if I named her Trouble, like having invited that trouble in my life, I wouldn't have as much. It didn't really work, but she was a good dog. How did Waffles get that name?
Waffles got that name. We were talking about Infinite Jest earlier before we started recording. When we got her from York, Nebraska, it's about 90 minutes away from here. We were driving from a rescue. We were driving back home, and I was talking to my wife. She was sitting in the back seat, and I was talking to my wife about my favorite author at the time. My favorite author, David Foster Wallace. And every time I kept saying Wallace, I noticed Waffles seemed to like respond to it. Her original name was Francine, which not a good enough name for us. So I finally at a stoplight, I looked over and I said, Wallace. And she kind of looked at me a little bit, and I looked at Angie, and she was like, oh, and I was like, oh, Waffles. And she cocked her head, and I was like, that's it.
That's it.
That's it. And the other dog that we have is Flapjack. So
that makes perfect sense.
Nine.
Yep.
Yeah, the other.
And our dog is named Chili, like the soup.
We have a cat who was feral, and I kept calling him the yellow and white kitty, and it was too long to say, so we started abbreviating it as Yak, Yawk, and that's his name. His name is Yak, and he moved inside years ago. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of non-traditional animal names.
So Waffles and Flappy, that's usually what we call her, have their regular person name. So like sometimes Waffles' teeth or her lip gets stuck, and so it looks like she's like a handlebar mustache going on. And so we call her Jim, because either she's digging in the ground, Earthworm Jim, or she's jumping on people, Jungle Jim. And then Flappy is Jack, because she just sometimes just kind of looks like a jackass. So
that's why you call me Jack.
Oh shoot! I gave away my secret. Sorry, guys.
One other, I will go away because it's like 10 o'clock my time. But one thing you mentioned, things you want to bring back to your lodge. Mm-hmm. Educational programs. I really think that one of the best ones that you can do with somebody. There's two that I love. Kind of going off of, like you were talking about, this Masonic artifact of the week. I love that, by the way. I used to, when I would go to a lodge, I would ask guys what their everyday carry was. Like, what is it you carry in your pockets every day? And guys would whip out, their pocket knives and their keys and everything. And you'd ask them and talk to them like, okay, like, why do you carry these? Like, what's the purpose of these? And they'll tell you some story, like but then you'd ask, okay, so what should a Mason carry with him every day? And that got to be an interesting discussion, because it could be literal, like he should carry his ritual, he should carry, his chapter penny, or it could be, sometimes it went a little bit more esoteric, like he should carry an open mind, that kind of thing. But getting guys to talk about that in lodge was interesting. And even just to have guys whip out their pocket knives and tell you like why the pocket knife is important. The other one I thought was really interesting was asking guys, like, if they ever met a Mason out in the wild, when they're traveling. Because almost every guy you've ever met has some story about they're at the zoo, with their daughter, and all of a sudden they see a guy with a square and compasses, or they notice a ring, while they're getting a hamburger somewhere. And all three of you, as soon as I said that, smiled. So I'm sure that it's a good story you all have. So, but in a lodge, get guys talking. It's amazing the stuff you'll find out.
No, those are fantastic examples, because I think Masonic education can be a bit of a scary aspect for some lodges, especially if they haven't done it for a long time, and they also think that it might just have to always be academic. But I think just simply be like, each of you go around and tell about a time you ran into a Mason in the wild, Yeah,
Mhm.
fantastic stories that come from that.
One time, so when I was master of my lodge, um, they'd had the same master for 3 years before I got there. And I realized that all the guys in the lodge had known each other for like 15 years, and I didn't know anybody. And I remember standing up and going, some of you guys are retired. I couldn't tell you what you did when you worked, and I have no idea what your wife's name is. And that's on me. Like that's also a bit on them. It's also on me. I had a hobby night one night for my Masonic education. I said, all right, guys, you all have a hobby. Bring some artifact of it in. And I have a collection of like knives and swords, so I brought in a Civil War sword. Some guy told a story about him and his friend. They dig out old outhouses because they like to find old glass bottles. We had one guy bring a drone in, and like this is when drones were new. And so he was flying it around our lodge and it crashed. And so we joked that we were the only lodge who've had a plane crash during one of our meetings. But I mean, these are guys that at this point, I'd been in lodge with these guys for 3 years, but getting these guys to talk about things that they were excited about or passionate about. Like, I don't give a rat's patootie about modern dance or tap dancing, but one of the guys in lodge, he and his wife did ballroom dancing. And he talked about what it meant to him and why it was important to him. And all of a sudden he made me see that through his eyes. And I'm like, I'm not going to sign up for a class, but man, I appreciate that much more now than I did before. And I know you a lot more now than I did before. So yeah. And all that comes down to, again, Eric, meaningful connections within the lodge and to the lodge.
And on Meaningful Connections, my shout out is going to go to a girl I work with at OPPD. She's the digital media specialist, basically the photographer, videographer, everything. She's the one person for a company of over 2,000 people. And she does a phenomenal job. And I just want to give her a shout out, Danielle Beebe. Sometimes she's got to be up at 2 a.m. to go take some video footage of some power plant or a generator getting transported to another power plant. She's amazing. It is a meaningful connection because I had to work with her a lot when we were creating the Electricity 101 series. So I feel like it's apropos. We've been talking about meaningful connections, and that's something that because of my work, because of working with Danielle directly, that's definitely now been a very meaningful connection.
Well, guys, I got to tell you, I've been a fan, and I don't think I've talked to many of you ever before tonight, but thank you for letting me come on and talk to you. I really appreciate it. Like I've enjoyed it. I look forward to next time, if there ever should be next time, or when I'll be in Kansas for the Midwest Conference this year, and so hopefully I'll get to see you guys then. So.
Nebraska.
Well, yeah, we'll see you in Omaha,
I'm
Nebraska.
So sorry. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, you're Nebraska, not Kansas.
Yeah, that's close.
I apologize.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock
you're
at
good.
night here, and I'm tired. I absolutely apologize.
No, it's all good.
We are going
Nebraska.
to make at least one or two of us will make every effort to get down to the conference this year. I think it's going to be at the Scottish Rite, if I'm not mistaken. But that's actually where our lodge is. It'd be an honor to show you around if we catch you down there. So
I would love that. I absolutely would love that. So, and plus, then we can talk some more. So,
absolutely.
Right on.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up our show, and I'll get ready to stop recording here at some point. There's my mouse. All right. Well, until next time, travel well, my brothers.